Tom, welcome. I want to start
Good
with
to
a
be with
story
you.
I did not even or was not aware of. This Canada Revenue Agency cutting jobs. Where'd this come from?
This is what's going to be happening a lot with the new government. Canada Revenue Agency is one of those places where you can start using artificial intelligence. You can start using new techniques to get a much better result. We have so many bureaucrats there. It's just a way of saying this thing can be run a lot better, and it will be. It's not to take anything away from the people who had been working there, because, of course, they all worked hard. But, no, the bureaucracy under Mr. Trudeau grew like Topsy. It grew. The overall number of bureaucrats in Ottawa grew by 40% in the 9.5 years that Trudeau was there. That's crazy. Makes no sense. And Carney's job is to make sure that he starts reducing that, because we're going to be in a perpetual deficit if he doesn't. I have every confidence that Carney knows exactly what to do. This is just a little bit of an indicator. You know, there have been others cuts there before, but there will be more. And there are very few of these people who actually lose their jobs, because when you're in the civil service, federally, you get moved around and you're going to be basically guaranteed a job for life. But it is a good sign that somebody is going to finally start managing Canada, Aaron, because Mr. Trudeau certainly didn't.
By the way, have you heard Mark Carney talk much or anything about McKinsey and all the money the government has spent there in the past, and whether he plans to reduce that?
No, but I'm expecting some of that in the throne speech next week, because that's another scandal. Because don't forget, while they were increasing the size of the civil service by 40% over 9 years and a bit, they started handing out $20 billion a year to outside companies to do the work that the bureaucrats weren't doing. So it's completely crazy. And yes, that's going to be very high on the order of things to chop for Mr. Carney.
Okay. Still with Mark Carney, and I heard you mention it earlier in the day, Marco Mendocino, who people may remember as a Liberal MP, has basically been acting as his chief of staff, but now that's not going to be the case going forward.
No, and I think the Mendocino's been really a stalwart for the Liberals. You know, he just said, look, I'm going to do this job for a little while. And I think he knew that he wasn't in it for the long haul. So Carney said, look, I haven't been able to find somebody permanently, so Marco's agreed to stay until the end of term, which is June 23rd, and good for both of them, because he's got somebody who at least knows where stuff is, because despite Carney's unbelievable qualities, experience, and expertise, he doesn't know where anything is in Parliament yet. And so he'll learn quickly, but Mendocino can help him around. And then after that, you know, Aaron, if we talk about tough jobs, Chief of Staff of a Prime Minister is a 24/7 job. You are, if not working, you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and sometimes you're working 24 hours in a day. So you've got to really get the right mix of people, somebody who's smart, like Carney, but who knows the political side of this a bit more. Probably somebody younger with a lot of energy, because believe me, Carney's got tons of energy. So they're going to be looking for the right fit. It's a very tough thing to do, because they mentioned some people. I knew one of them who was working at the Caisse de Dépôt, and said, oh, this guy would be a good chief of staff. I happen to know that he's making like well over $1 million. Well, why would he give that up to go to Ottawa and do that job? So there are people like that who will be considered, and we'll say, no thanks, but they'll find somebody.
By the way, speaking of chief of staff, so the other story that was, I think, talked about a lot this week concerned Jenny Byrne and Pierre Poilievre in chief of staff.
That's a very interesting story, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder where that's going. You know, you got to blame someone, I guess, for an election loss, no matter if you did better or not. You still finished second. How does that play out, do you think?
It's going to play out that Jenny Byrne has to be fired. And if it doesn't play out that Jenny Byrne is fired by Poilievre, then Poilievre is going to have a hard time talking to his caucus and to his members. You're completely right as you describe it, Aaron. There's somebody who's got to carry the can for what happened during that campaign. They were 27 points ahead, and they lost. So they keep spinning a good tale. You know, we got new seats in the Greater Toronto area, and, you know, this is the highest percentage we've had since Brian Mulroney. Yeah, but you lost, and you're in opposition for the next 4.5 years, and you had a 27% lead. Now, to be fair, that lead was against a certain Justin Trudeau, who was highly unpopular. Fair enough. And Donald Trump wasn't around yet. Fair enough. But they lost. I mean, they've got to stop spinning themselves, and that's going to happen the day that Jenny Byrne is gone. And this is not gossip. It's not to talk about it disparagingly. It's a simple fact that they've both talked about openly. Pierre Poilievre and Jenny Byrne lived together for quite a few years before he met and married his current wife. So they have a history that goes back. They have a very take-no-prisoners view of how you do politics. But if Poilievre wants to move away from that image of himself and have a chance down the road of ever becoming Prime Minister of Canada, which he does not have right now, because that guy that he keeps projecting is not going to become the Prime Minister of this country. So if he wants to have a chance to move away from that, the first thing he's got to do is find somebody else to run his stuff, and that's not Jenny Byrne.
Yeah. Maybe it could be Marco Mendocino. No, that's a bad idea. Let me get to the story. I had this, and this has been in the news now for a while now, the past couple of days. I had that clip where Donald Trump was talking about the Golden Dome and how beautiful it's going to be, and Canada will, of course, pay for its own.
It's going to be great and beautiful.
Of course it is.
The two adjectives he knows.
Yeah, like his budget bill. So my question here is, and I've heard people weigh in on both sides of this one, saying it's, first of all, it's going to cost much, much more than he suggested. Second of all, it's not feasible really that something like this could happen.
Yes.
Because if you refer to Israel's Iron Dome, Israel is the size of New Jersey.
The
not
size
quite
of
the
Vancouver
same.
Island, if you want a Canadian reference.
There you go. So where? I mean, I know Mark Carney was asked about this, and he kind of did a bit of a waffle on the question, tried to be a little coy. What do you think happens here?
Well, there's no question that if some bad things like ICBMs with 10 nuclear warheads are coming over from Russia, they're flying over Canada, and the Americans will be shooting them down. They'll fall here. So we've got to be part of this. We were already part of NORAD. But what I think that Carney was trying to signal is he's not the first person to have looked at this. This has been around for a couple of years, been talked about by the people there before him, because he doesn't want to carry the can for an eventual deal about Donald Trump's golden his Golden Dome. And it's absurd. It's the exact opposite of what we need in the world. There will always be more than enough nuclear weapons to completely destroy the world. So this thing, which would cost several $1 trillion once it was, if and when it would have been built, is not going to be able to stop stuff from coming over the pole or around the world. They've got hypersonic weapons now that go far faster than any of these things could ever catch them. But this is pure Trump. It's a sop to the aerospace industry in the United States and the defense industry. Canada is going to be involved, the same way we're involved in NATO, because it's our geography that's involved as well. He's just got to play it smart, because whether it was John Diefenbaker back in the 60s saying no to the nuclear-tipped Bullmark missiles to John F. Kennedy that earned him the enmity of Kennedy, and that helped bring in Pearson, whether it was Pierre Trudeau saying no to Ronald Reagan's Star Wars, his strategic defense initiative, Brian Mulroney, a conservative who really liked to keep a good relationship with Reagan, had his foreign affairs minister, Joe Clark, say no to the SDI and to Reagan, and they were right. But Reagan spent so much, and the Soviet Union tried to keep up, and you know what happened? The Berlin Wall fell. The Soviet Union fell apart because of that. Here, Trump is so dumb, and what he's doing makes so little sense, that he could actually wind up doing the same thing to the U.S., spending so much on something that has no purpose, that the United States, which is already teetering. Look, the rating services have already said that they're not reliable, to lend money to. And that's means that you're on the edge. And if you're on the edge and you're planning to spend trillions of dollars for absolutely no good reason, then you could go over that edge. And this is exactly this is the way Donald Trump's handled his own career. So don't expect anything but that sort of chaos from him now that he's president again.
By the way, I'm just surprised, up until this point anyway, that he hasn't said the Golden Dome would be paid for by our enemies. Like Russia, like Mexico paying for the wall.
Mexico, yes.
Someone else will
Canada.
pay for the
Canada
dome.
Pay for
yeah,
it,
that's right.
They're the
all
ones
of it.
we're protecting.
Yeah. Listen,
and by the way, I hope you heard the BS that came out of Trump later. He says, Canada's asked to be part of it. As usual, we'll do whatever we can, to try to help Canada. As if, he was doing us a favor.
Yeah. Because he's always doing us a favor.
He's a really good guy. That's what we know about him.
By the way, since we're speaking of Trump, I don't know if you heard this today. I mentioned this with Amanda Lang earlier. Trump is a little concerned over the fact that nothing, Tom, is happening at the G7 finance meeting in Banff, and is so much upset that he now wants to slap a 50% tariff on the EU.
Well, why not? I mean, what's 50% between friends? So the European Union, which is bigger, badder, and stronger than the U.S., and he's attacking Apple. He wants to ensure that Apple makes iPhones in the United States. Can you just see a table full of Americans fumbling with those products, trying to manufacture them?
Those are tiny little screws, Tom. They're very hard to handle.
Well, certainly, I can't see too many people with MAGA hats making those phones. Let me just put it that way. And this is pure Trump again. He thinks he can just bark at Apple, and Apple's going to say, "Oh yeah, we're a $1 trillion company. We're really going to listen to you, Donald. You're a serial bankrupt, a con artist, and a convicted criminal. It's okay. We'll take our business advice from somebody else."
Yeah, but other than that, by the way, the estimate is that if those phones are to be made in America, your iPhone that you're paying about $1,000 for now, or a little over that, would be about $3,500 per phone.
I thought you were going to say 35,000.
No, only 3,500. Yeah. All right. Last thing I want to get to, the Leger poll. How about this, on provincial sovereignty, revealing that Quebec has the highest proportion of citizens against provincial sovereignty at 59%.
because we've been through it and we know what's involved in a referendum. 1-800 Danielle Smith. Listen to people who have been through this. It's divisive for businesses, for communities, for families. Don't go down that road. But she's a clever politician. She's playing the same old game, saying, "Oh, if I don't get what I want, we're going to split." It's like a child, a 14-year-old saying, "If you don't give me what you want, I'm going to run away." I'm going to run away, but you can't come back, and you're not going to get to do your laundry here, and bye-bye. And it's the same sort of thing. And we in Quebec, those of us you're like me, Aaron. You were through the 1980 referendum, and you were here for the 95 referendum. I did both as well, and I would strongly recommend that anybody who's musing about a referendum talk to anybody who's actually been through a couple.
Send her some video of what exactly was going on back then.
Yep.
Tom, you have a great weekend. Thanks so much.
All the best.